We interrupt this program to bring you an important breaking news report as 5 children have been reported missing at Freddy FNAF. They were said to have disappeared suddenly after a birthday party. The parents have already seen children reported to have seen a yellow rabbit. More to come after these messages.
If you've played or seen Five Nights at Freddy's, there's a good chance you've heard of the missing children incident. In 1985, 5 children went missing at a birthday party at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It happened when a man put on an old spring bunny costume, pretending to be a mascot to lure the kids over to a secret location without suspicion and killing them. A suspect was arrested but released later due to lack of evidence. The names of these children: Susie, Jeremy, Fritz, Gabriel, and Cassidy. This event is a cornerstone of the series. In every iteration of the story, this is the one constant that stays the same regardless of the medium. The games, the books, and now the movies. But not everything has stayed the same throughout, and it might be a bit confusing. I figured I'd make a video on all the key points of the incident, facts, speculation, and some theories. Now without further ado, let's take a closer look. Let's start with the victims. Susie is the child that would end up possessing Chica, and is also commonly known as the first victim. She says as much herself. Susie is also special, because out of all the victims, she's the only one with any kind of backstory. One day, Susie's dog is hit by a car, instantly killing them. And someone comes up to her, a yellow rabbit with a big smile on its face. He tells her it's all okay. He's not really dead. He's over here. Follow me. He takes her to a private room, promising her dog is alive and safe, and that was the last time she was ever seen alive. In the movie, the part about her dog is absent. She's just another one of the kids from the party. I should also mention that she's actually the third child taken from the party, if the opening in the FNAF movie is to be believed at least. But in Help Wanted 2, when lighting the graves in order, Susie is once again symbolized as the first victim of the missing children. There's also a strong chance that the car that hit the dog was the killer's too. Maybe he was eager to cover his tracks, or maybe he saw an easy opportunity and took it. The way the other children were murdered followed a similar pattern too. They were all tricked by a yellow rabbit and taken into a secret room before being killed. And it's safe to assume that they were all killed soon after each other. They all attended the same party. Maybe it was one of theirs, or someone they knew. But they all went and were preyed upon, lured away by a smiling yellow animatronic. Unfortunately, there's not much else to be said about the other children. They haven't been expanded on much, yet at least, except for some differences in their appearances between mediums. In the books, there are also more children that get kidnapped. While in the movies, they also add a new kid named Garrett, who isn't a part of the missing children officially, but he is still there. Maybe he's a stand-in for the puppet, but we won't really know until the second movie comes out. What became of the children after their deaths is also widely known. Their bodies were stuffed into the animatronic suits, prolonging their discovery. It was quickly reported that the children had gone missing, but their bodies were never found. At least, not officially. The decomposing bodies started to smell, and fluids leaked out of the animatronics. And that's when they were put away. But death would not be the end. Whether it was because of the horrific way they were killed or another supernatural force, they lived on, not through flesh, but metal, returning as spirits, piloting their own resting place, not entirely aware of everything going on around them. All they know is that they're angry. And on that note, the widely accepted name for the soul possessing Golden Freddy is Cassidy. Now this one is where it gets really confusing. See, this is Cassidy, but this is Cassidy too. And this might be Cassidy too, but he's not officially called Cassidy. And they're also a boy. And this is Cassidy as well, but his name is actually Michael Brooks, and he's not Cassidy at all. So yeah, it's a bit confusing. A while ago, there was a growing following of people that believed that Golden Freddy was actually 2 spirits, one being Cassidy and the other being Crying Child. And that was one of the reasons why Golden Freddy couldn't move properly, since they were both struggling for control. It also explains why they were way more powerful than the others, since inside was 2 souls, not 1. Where did this belief come from? Well, it started all the way back in 2015 when FNAF 3 came out. Once you finished that game and got the bad ending, you got this. Notice anything? That's right, there's 6 lights. But we've been so sure that there were 5 children. Where did this one come from? Well, in the Stitch Wave Stingers, there's an animatronic possessed by 2 people, both dying in similar ways to Cassidy and Crying Child. And also, in the FNAF logbook, you've got 2 people talking to each other throughout the pages. And some people believe that this is Cassidy talking to Crying Child. But there's a lot of things that go against this and straight up debunk it. In the FNAF 6 gravestone ending, you see Cassidy's name, but no one else's. The grave up here is for Charlie, who's unrelated. The 2 lights thing was just the light from the left eye showing in the other. Look, you can even see it in Bonnie's eyes too. And the logbook doesn't necessarily mean that the people talking to each other are in the same body. You could just as easily make the assumption that this is the same person talking to themselves, trying to remember who they are. The book parallel could be seen as just another wink wink nudge nudge, but this is the only parallel we have from the books for this. The books aren't a direct one-to-one telling, so we can't put all our eggs into one basket. And in Ultimate Custom Night, Golden Freddy is always being referenced as the one you should not have killed. Notice the one here. Now moving on, why is Cassidy so angry? Well, they were kind of brutally murdered for one. As all the other spirits fade into the afterlife, Cassidy stays behind, intent on tormenting their killer's soul for all eternity. And on that note, the murderer, the yellow rabbit, the purple man, William Afton. Everything that can be said about him has already been said. He was originally an engineer, one that turned to a businessman, starting a company alongside his best friend. And for the most part, he was a pretty normal guy. A husband, a father, the kind of person you wouldn't mind inviting over to your house. A family guy. At least, that's what he wants you to think. In reality, he was a psycho. He was the one that dressed himself in an old Spring Bonnie suit. He was the killer that kicked off the series known as Five Nights at Freddy's as we know it. I've made a whole video breaking down his motivations, but I'll go over it quickly here. He was a sadistic killer who coincidentally came across possession. He studied it, and from that, he learned of ways to keep things alive. He believed that this was the key to immortality, and continued to do heinous things, hoping he could keep himself alive forever. He was the mastermind behind the missing children's incident. He killed the children and never looked back. In the end, he was caught, but never officially convicted for the murders due to the lack of evidence, allowing him to commit even more atrocities down the line. However, he would be caught in one way. He accidentally releases the souls of the killed children. He runs away in fear and ends up dying in the same way his victims did, trapped in an animatronic. Poetic, really. But he wouldn't actually die from that. That would come later. He crept around for a while until he was finally killed for a 3rd time, and after that he would be trapped in an inescapable prison, one called Eternal Punishment, a personal hell made just for him. You'd think that this would be the end of him, but as you know, he always comes back. Now, as you'd expect, after this event, the local media went crazy. It was in every newspaper. People wanted to know what happened, and this put a lot of pressure on Fazbear Entertainment. They had to do something quick, and like any morally upstanding company, they did the only thing you can do: cover it up completely. Their plan was to try and ignore it as long as possible and feign ignorance. And that plan went pretty well, actually. It went so well, they were able to reopen the restaurant a few years later. They even made a new place with new animatronics. Nothing to see here, folks. Sure, the new location eventually closed down, but Freddy's is still a global brand, even bigger than it used to be. All those stories about missing children just disappeared. They even developed games to make light of the situation. And this might be a bit forward, but there's a good chance that the children's bodies that went missing were covered up too. As in, the bodies were found after they started smelling, and instead of reporting it, they did something else. Got rid of it. What a great company. But what if it wasn't the company that covered it up? If not them, then who did it? A sentiment that isn't as prominent as the others is that Henry, William's old friend and business partner, was in on it. Which truly doesn't make much sense, since Henry's daughter was killed by William. I guess it's from the point of view that Henry most likely knew what William was doing and didn't say anything. And that is true. He knew what William was doing and simply acted like he couldn't see anything. But that's because after the death of his daughter, he withdrew from the spotlight and buried himself in his work. He didn't have it in him to turn on his old friend, letting Afton's murder spree continue for longer than it should have, until he finally decided enough was enough.
This ends, for all of us, in communication.
Either that, or the bodies were found during FNAF 1 by Michael after he went to the back rooms, and was caught tampering with the animatronics, after which he was quickly fired. Can't have any loose ends after all. And that's about it. The missing children incident is the first domino, so I thought it was important to have a nice little go over it. Even though most people already know everything about it, hey, they might even know more than me. Ah well, I had fun making it, so hopefully you enjoyed watching it. In the end, I think there's a beautiful lesson we can learn from this. People that wear purple are evil. Video's over.